Released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2, Alchemist of Steel 2, Devil of the Red Elixir is a direct follow-up to Broken Angel, carrying over its engine and basic gameplay structure. Despite the lukewarm to negative reception of the first game, the sequel was still localized for English-speaking audiences in 2005, just 6 months after Broken Angel, as Fullmetal Alchemist 2, Curse of the Crimson Elixir. Rec.Chain clearly understood how lackluster and bland their previous effort was, and took significant care to recover from their missteps. The most significant change being Crimson Elixir's presentation overhaul. The first game had the appearance not of the anime, but of the full-color illustrations Arakawa uses for chapter covers. One look at Ed's strangely orange hair and eyes, and you'll see this is no mere coincidence. Putting into consideration how soon this game was released after the anime's creation, I think it's likely the game's staff were given this style of drawing from Miss Arakawa when being tasked with designing the game's visuals, as the anime would have been in pretty early production, and they likely wouldn't have had a ton of key art lying around yet. While these drawings are good for their original purpose in the manga, translating the subdued colors to a video game resulted in characters and locations that appear lifeless and dull. All of these issues were rectified in FMA2, where all the models were remade from scratch, and a new cel-shaded style was introduced to bring the game more in line with the 2003 anime, even down to the weird way the anime draws Ed's bangs. There's other changes besides the graphics, of course, but we'll get to them when we get to them. Let's start off with the story for now. While the previous game Broken Angel fit perfectly into the original show's timeline and was written by the series' creator, Curse of the Crimson Elixir is an entirely non-canon side story. This is evident as soon as the game begins. Now, this is hard to explain, and is going to sound a little weird, but try and follow my janky explanation. The first chapter of the game is a slightly altered retelling of the first few episodes of the show, placed later into the timeline with very small changes made to tie it into the game's plot. This has next to zero bearing on the new narrative and is really just fan service. For this reason, I'm not going to describe it in great detail because you can just watch the first couple episodes or read the first few manga chapters to get the same story but better. No point in recounting a watered down version. Edward Elric, the Fullmetal Alchemist, and his younger brother Alphonse Elric arrive at the religious desert town of Lior. On their journey to find an incredibly powerful catalyst known as the Philosopher's Stone to restore their bodies, the two caught wind of a rumor about the town's prophet Cornello performing miracles, that the brothers figure is probably just very powerful alchemy. And wait, what is that?
Based on the rumors I've heard, all that stuff is just alchemy. But even then, being able to resurrect the dead seems a little far-fetched.
You figure it's got something to do with the Philosopher's Stone?
Well, that's what we came all the way here to find out, isn't it?
Holy shit, the game's fully voiced now. I cannot even begin to tell you what a vast improvement this is over the first game, and its bland, static walls of text. The Elrics head to the temple to try and get a look at the father's miracles when Ed is attacked by the church's followers for being a state alchemist. So, let's talk about the basic gameplay now. Things aren't so much changed from the previous game as they are polished. You still have basic punching and kicking melee attacks performed by pressing square, and you can still combo into rock spikes by pressing circle during a combo. However, triangle now serves the purpose of being a heavy attack button, allowing you to mix up your combos, if only slightly. Pressing triangle at any point in the combo always has the same end result, but it's a little more interesting than the boring single combos that were available in the first game. You can still transmute objects around the map into usable weapons of many varieties, however you no longer have to hold circle to charge up the alchemy meter, and can instead perform transmutations instantly with the press of a button. In addition to rolling and dodging, you can now simply guard on your own, which is a very weird feature that was missing from Broken Angel. You also now have the ability to perform a counterattack by pressing the guard button just as an enemy swings at you. This is invaluable for facing larger, more powerful enemies, as the counter completely cuts through their defense. The fighting is interrupted by a god-obsessed girl named Rose, who offers to escort Ed and Al to Father Cornello. Of course, when they get there, they are attacked again, much to Rose's disbelief, and the duo battle their way through the temple. After knocking out some zealots and then destroying some of these strange black creatures, the brothers make it to Cornello's room.
Now be on your best behavior.
I know. He is the prophet after all. I'll be good. I don't have time for sermons from a con man! Your ring. It's the Philosopher's Stone, isn't it? Let me put this as simply as possible. Hand it over!
Ed, I thought you said you'd be good.
So the state alchemist sees through everything. Indeed. The legendary alchemic amplifier is in my hands. Quite a powerful stone, as you should well know, boy. For instance, I can easily forge something like this.
A chimera.
Go get them, my beast! Rip them to pieces!
What's the matter, you poor bastard? Can't get a good taste? Oh? Rose. Don't look away. You need to see what happens when you try to bring a human back to life. When you cross into God's territory, or whatever the hell it is.
Mechanical limbs. Your auto-mel. I see. Now I understand you, Elf. You are the Fullmetal! The Fullmetal Alchemist!
Now we've got our first real weapon, the spear. It's fast and far-reaching, but unwieldy. Since the lock-on isn't super great, its length will often cause your attacks to whiff smaller, faster enemies. Main weapons work differently in this game than the first one. Instead of having to transmute specific objects and hoping the right one is nearby for the item you want, Ed can now use the ground as material to transmute any main weapons you've unlocked so far. You can switch between them freely with no cost whatsoever, and certain enemies are weak to certain weapons, adding a small layer of strategy to the game. These weapons also do decent damage on their own, and no longer require you to constantly transmute an element onto them to make them useful. After easily defeating the Chimera, Ed and Al chase after Father Cornello.
Not that way, Ed, turn left!
What are you doing, Al?
Just look. Who are you? Careful!
So what do you want me to do with the...
The brothers ponder what just happened, but remember that they're supposed to be following the father and rush outside, where Cornello is waiting for them with a squad of living statues. The Elrics beat Cornello into submission, and his overuse of the stone causes a rebound that mutilates his hand.
What?
Ed tries to take the Philosopher's Stone from him, only for it to shatter. The stone was a fake. Something that would later in the series be referred to as a red stone, which, while similar to a Philosopher's Stone, lacks the proper power and integrity. Ed and Al plan to interrogate Cornello about where that stone came from, when all of a sudden...
What the hell?
I don't remember that part of the show. Empty-handed, Edward and Alphonse arrive back at East City to give their report to Colonel Mustang.
What in the hell was that?
The Elrics see a shady guy walk off to the sewers and fight off his thugs while pursuing him. This is another sort of perversion of a scene from the show. This guy with the gun arm is bald, and he was originally a minor villain train hijacker, though I guess he now just gets off on killing military officers with secret explosions. To fight him, Ed transmutes our next main weapon, the sword. It's probably the most balanced of the 4 weapons, dealing good damage and having decent combos, while being slower than your bare hands or the spear. This battle's no big deal. He calls Mooks to help him out a few times, but all you have to do is transmute these vacuum tower pole things, and lead them near it so you can wipe them all out at once. This is a good strategy whenever that particular transmutation is available. Just when Ed and Al have balled up against the ropes, a certain somebody shows up to steal the kill.
What?
Don't worry, I controlled myself. The damage to your skin isn't nearly as bad as it feels.
Oh no, only one guy I know could be that obnoxious.
Bastard, who the hell are you?
You can call me Roy Mustang, or just Colonel. Better yet, call me the Flame Alchemist, and be sure to remember the pin.
At East Headquarters, the Elric brothers talk with Roy about strange disappearances that have been occurring around Amestris. It's believed these vanishing people are tied with the sightings of black goo creatures, much like the ones Ed and Al saw in Lior. Before being dispatched to investigate, though, Edward requires some repairs on his automail, so he and Alphonse head back to their hometown of Rezimbul to visit their childhood friend and mechanic, Winry Rockbell. While Ed gets his arms repaired, let's take a moment to talk about our equipment. It's pretty much the same as before, so I'll try to keep it short. Usable items. We got elixirs for healing, reloaders for more ammo, capsules for temporary stat buffs. You've got 2 equipment slots for each brother for various stat-based or gimmick-based accessories. Then you've got bonus points acquired from boss fights and level ups that can be used to upgrade either your HP, attack, defense, or alchemy. And just like before, don't put points in alchemy. The other stats are much more beneficial. The night before the boys head back to East City, a worried resident of the village bursts into the Rockbell residence and starts shouting about a horde of black monsters he saw at the hill caves. Ed and Al run to check out the situation, but don't find any monsters. Only a crowd of people standing around next to a cave in the middle of the night. You don't need a big think to know something's going on here.
Please evacuate quickly. We got word that monsters are prowling around.
The brothers hurry into the caves to make sure no one else is in danger when they find that mysterious woman again. The good one. The one with the white hair. You know what? Let's just make this easy. We'll call this one the mystery woman, and this one can be... Fish Lady. Yeah, let's go with that. The mystery woman mutters a few unintelligible phrases, but when Ed and Al try to catch up with her, she vanishes behind a large door. Knowing that transmuting this thing could be bad for the cavern's structural integrity, the brothers instead decide to head into the cave to find the tablet pieces that open the door. After a little Resident Evil-style scavenger hunt, the brothers push through the gate and come face to face with that fish lady that fucked up Cornello. She's the boss of this chapter, and she sucks. There's nothing challenging or interesting about this encounter. This woman was an indie wrestler in a past life because her flippy shit game is on point. She spends 90% of the fight retreating away from you, and once you do hit her, good luck getting a full combo because she'll flip out of that too. Or she'll activate her rushdown attack during your attack, so you have no way to avoid it. It's nothing but a patience test.
What exactly are you, anyway? Are you even human? Or something? And who are you? Stay back!
You poor thing. All these bruises and scars. Don't worry, I'll make it all better.
What do you think you're doing, huh?
Are you okay?
Damn.
After meeting back at Roy's office again to decide their next move, the Colonel sends Ed and Al on a mission with Hawkeye to the nearby town of Bourdouan, where people have been disappearing and being replaced by those black creatures. When they arrive, they find the town is completely deserted, and all of the buildings are burnt down and blown out.
What the hell happened?
This is awful.
Yeah, it's like a tornado and a battalion came through.
It's far worse than what was reported to headquarters. We'd better quicken our pace and find Lieutenant Havoc.
What's the matter, Al? You forget how to walk in a straight line? Stop bumping into me!
Sorry. These spooky places give me the creeps.
I can't believe you got the heebie-jeebies, Al. You're a suit of armor. Look at the lieutenant walking all bravely up there, leading the way, and she's just a girl. Whoa, 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 whoa! Put that down, Lieutenant! I didn't mean to insult you in any way, I swear! I just meant 'cause you're
No choice, boys. Get ready for a fight.
No matter where the trio go, they find nothing but the black goo monsters. Taking refuge inside a house on the outskirts of town, they find a ton of research materials. Whoever used to live here was very intent on discovering the truth behind these monsters. From what we can gather, they're called golems. They're made from alchemy using sand and clay, and whatever creates them originates from an ancient desert civilization called Lebus that disappeared in a single night. For any curious Fullmetal Alchemist fans, it isn't related in any way to Xerxes. This game is based on the 2003 anime in which Xerxes doesn't exist. This lovely exposition dump is interrupted by an earth-shaking roar from outside, where Riza and the Elrics find Lieutenant Havoc and some Indiana Jones Joseph Joestar looking motherfucker cornered by a giant monster. It's funny, I remember this fight being much harder than it actually was this playthrough. This thing's skin is tough, so regular attacks don't do much. Luckily, there's a ton of transmutable materials you can use to make guns and bombs and other useful weapons. Even if you run out, this thing occasionally fires out black eggs that hatch into tiny golems, but if you hurry and transmute them first, you can instead turn them into various arms.
That's him, the guy we saw.
Yeah, from Risenbul. So, you're the one who did this to the village, aren't you? Were you trying to do the same thing to Risenbul too? What is your purpose for all of this? What was that transmutation circle for?
I had a feeling we'd meet again someday.
Damn it, pal. You got a bad habit of being cryptic.
No, wait!
No circles. Impressive, young alchemist. Interesting. You have the same eyes.
Brother!
You should have realized you have no right to stop me.
Crowley! That's you, isn't it? I knew it! There could be no mistaking you! Don't you recognize me? It's me! It's Arlen! I can't believe this! Crowley?
No. The Arlen I know is not a doddering old fool like you.
What do you mean? You're talking nonsense. How many years do you think it's been? How can you still look so young? What happened to you?
So this old guy is Arlen Glossner, and he used to be friends with the guy with the black coat, Jack Crowley. The house with all the books is his, as he's been studying Levis for many years. In fact, that's how he met Crowley in the first place. Wanting to stop whatever his old friend is planning, Arlen eventually agrees to take Ed and Al to the ruins of Siam Sid, the place that was once the capital of Levis. The group are shocked when they arrive at what should be a desert wasteland, but instead find a perfectly intact, populated city. On top of that, the mysterious woman is also here. Arlen is in shock when he recognizes the girl as Elma, Crowley's dead girlfriend. But before he can ask her what's going on, she activates the transmutation circle in the middle of the square, which teleports her away. Wouldn't teleporting technically be human transmutation? That probably shouldn't work. Fanboyish canon observations aside, Ed and the others head towards the King's Spire in the center of Siam Sid, but are stopped by an angry mob.
What's up with these guys? That didn't work.
Hold on. Something's not quite right here.
The Elrics are now forced to fight their way through the city, and this section is probably the strongest one in the game. A bunch of new golems are introduced, as are plenty of new and fun-to-use transmutation items, like throwing knives and goddamn tanks. It's nice to have an extended battle arena like this, instead of being interrupted every other room for someone to make an obvious observation, like,
Hey, Nissan, do you think this round thing goes in the other round thing?
Difficulties, Edward Elric? How can one struggle against a lumbering enemy whose only strength is in its numbers? Behold, hideous deformations! Sample the marriage of alchemy and physical strength passed down the Armstrong line for generations. Part might, part erudite!
That wasn't too much, was it? It's so hard holding yourself back in battle when you're fighting brainless drudge.
Colonel.
Inside the Spire, the group is faced with 3 more teleportation circles. Riza, Roy, and Armstrong each take a different path, and you're free to choose which one you accompany. I picked Hawkeye for no real reason, she just happened to be the first one I walked to. Which partner you choose to go through the next section with will determine what bonus accessory you get at the end, but other than that, it's not a huge change as you get separated from them about 15 minutes later. Ed, Al, and Arlen end up in the Queen of Lebus's chamber near the top of the Spire, where they encounter the Fish Lady again, and we can piece together what's going on. Crowley is using an artifact called the Crimson Stone to forge an elixir that can resurrect Elma from the dead. The Elma we've been seeing is an imperfect golem created by Crowley that contains her soul. The Scaled Woman has been going around and killing people because the Crimson Stone is powered by human blood. The Elric brothers can't let that happen though, so it's time for another boss fight against this flipping bitch. She was kind of annoying before, but oh joy, the arena is now twice as large, and she has way more health. There really isn't anything else different. The fight is still just a boring game of cat and mouse. It's just that the numbers are bigger this go around, that's all.
Do you think she's dead?
That can't be. It can't. No.
Gramps?
Elma! 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 Elma, wake up, please! Stay with me!
Arlen.
Elma, but I don't understand. How could you have been that monster?
Arlen. Please. The stone. You must destroy it.
A stone? What is this stone? What do you mean?
It's a great big crimson stone. Please, Arlen. If you destroy it, he'll stop this.
A crimson stone? Okay, Elma, I understand. I'll find it. I promise.
I thank you.
Oh, Elma!
Goodbye, Arlen. I'm sorry.
Arlen stays behind to grieve over Elma, while Ed and Al go ahead, moving from the top of the spire to the basement beneath. There's a sudden switch to platforming for a bit with these fans that blow Ed all around the place. It can be pretty damn time sensitive, unless you realize you can create rock blockers which hold you in place until the wind stops. Took me a little while to figure this out. After one final gauntlet, Edward and Alphonse enter an elaborate chamber where Crowley makes the final preparations of his plan.
So you've come all the way here to see me, young alchemist.
Crowley.
I wanted to see you again, for your eyes are the same as mine. The elixir shall soon be complete. I shall see to it that you offer up your life as well, young alchemist.
Human sacrifice? You make me sick. You make me sick, you monster! You take so many innocent lives and justify it all with your own greed? That's all you can offer?
What are you implying? Why do you raise your voice, young alchemist? Surely we've shared the same experience. There is nothing you wouldn't do to bring back your loved one, is there? My Elma is everything to me. You are the same as I. We have both dared the forbidden for the ones we so dearly love.
Shut up, damn it! You're wrong! You're so wrong!
My young alchemist, the weight of your automail is but a fraction of the true burden you carry.
That's enough! Stop it! Just shut up! Shut up!
Ed?
I am not the same as you! The horrible things you do, they could never, ever make anyone happy!
Then tell me, is there another path? And could you take a different path as well, Edward Elric? You couldn't stop me if you tried.
The battle against Crowley is surprisingly simple for a final boss. He really only has 2 attacks. At first he just spams these giant rock spikes over and over, simple enough to avoid, but he can juggle you with them. After taking out a chunk of his health, he takes out a sword. Nothing fancy, just a pointy stick to swing at you.
Why are you trying to stop me? You...
Just give it up, Crowley. I can't forgive you, but I don't want to take your life.
Ed, this doesn't look good.
It's also not the real boss. This is the actual finale. Monster Crowley has a completely different set of moves. Energy Blast, pillars with laser eyes, a rushdown attack, and this radial fireball, which is literally the only time in the game you would want to use the rock blockers for their intended purpose. It's pretty dangerous to just try and attack him outright. It's best to wait till he misses this charge attack, which leaves him open for a few seconds.
Jeez! Would you warn me before you do that?
Hey, look!
Care to explain, Fullmetal?
It's Crowley, Colonel. He keeps coming back. Damn it. Thought we had him.
It's because of the stone. We have to find the stone, remember?
Yeah, but how?
It's gotta be close. Let's track it down and destroy it.
If you got ideas, by all means, go! We're not gonna last long!
I'm sorry to say, Colonel, but you're gonna have to buy us a little more time here.
Then that'll make it 3 you owe me.
Let's move, Al.
This must be it. The great big crimson stone.
The crimson elixir that Crowley made. But right now, we've got to destroy this stone. Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's shattered. It's over.
And so it ends, a familiar story in these parts. One man's obsession to bring back from the dead the one he loves the most.
A tragic end indeed.
Ed, what are you thinking right now?
Probably the same thing that you're thinking, Al.
I don't know. So, oh, what a lovely trip. Don't you think?
Well, we made it. I guess we're finally on our way to Central now.
Right, the library. I nearly forgot. That was quite the detour.
Well, it would be very disingenuous of me not to say well done, Edward Elric. Excellent job.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about working hard. You make everybody's lives easier, and still nobody shows up to wave you goodbye.
Come now, you know everyone at East Headquarters is busy. By the way, I thought you'd be interested to know that Mr. Glossner character you spent time with has returned to Siam Sid.
What? He went back?
Apparently, the man is adamant that he's going to spend the rest of his life there. Even though civilians aren't allowed on the premises, because there's still so much the state wants to look into.
Are you thinking about Crowley again? I was. I mean, maybe we're no different than he was. If we'd taken one wrong step, all of this could have happened to us.
We won't do that. I'm telling you right now, that's one wrong step we're never gonna take. We'd never sacrifice life, just for our own selfish gains, to get an arm or a body that we want.
Yeah.
Sacrificing somebody's entire life only because you want to be happy? That can never be called equivalent exchange. So we'll just have to keep looking for the real answer out there. What is it, Major?
Oh, nothing to worry about. It just seems that you've grown tremendously through this incident, Edward Elric.
Huh? I've grown? You mean you really think I got taller? That's great!
Before I give my final thoughts, I need to tell you something. Something that, if you've never played this game before, you wouldn't have noticed. This game has 7 chapters, and I completely skipped 2 of them. Now, why would I do something like that? Well, allow me to elucidate you. After the encounter with Bald in the sewer, the game takes a sudden detour into recapping a decently sized chunk of the anime that has no relation whatsoever to the main story about the Crimson Elixir. The entire first Scar arc, including both the Tucker incident that leads into it, and the visit to Resident Evil after, are replicated almost beat for beat, with absolutely no adjustments to integrate them into the actual plot of the game. Scar plays no role in the game after this point, and the stuff with Tucker and Nina is reduced to survival horror-style notes you find lying around his house. Apologies for being so vague, but this is a spoiler-free zone, mostly. One of my points with this series was to get people interested in watching or reading FMA, so spoiling one of the most iconic arcs in the series isn't something I have any intention of doing. But the fact that I could skip them leads to my one big issue with this game. The gameplay, graphics, and presentation overall are much improved over Broken Angel, and this is a game I'd actually recommend to not just fans, but also fans of action RPGs in general. However, the pacing is, how you say, non-existent. The chapters are laid out like this. Chapter 1, Anime Episodes 1 and 2 retelling. Chapter 2, Weird sort of Anime Episode 5 retelling. Chapter 3, Anime Episodes 7, 14, and 15 retelling. Chapter 4, Anime Episode 17 retelling with a boss fight featuring the fish lady at the end. Chapter 5 takes place in Bourdoin. Chapter 6 takes place in Siam Sid. And Chapter 7 takes place in the Levis Spire. I don't know if you've noticed, but less than half of this already short game is actually about what the game is about. It feels like you're jumping around a greatest hits list of the 2003 anime before being suddenly and unceremoniously dumped into a new plot that has no relation to anything that happened up to that point. Cornello, Bald, Tucker, Scar, none of them have any relation to the main plot about Crowley and the Elixir. And then for no reason, there's an after-credit scene that reveals the homunculi were the ones who told Crowley about the stone to begin with? Okay, and? What does that have to do with anything? It's not world building, the game is non-canon, and there's no later game where this scene is expanded on. It's just another case of this game shoving in parts of the original series for fan service where they don't belong. Not that I have anything against the source material, of course, but either adapt the show or make an original story. Don't try to do both. If you do, you end up with this game's messy, rushed narrative. The whole plot honestly feels like a Fullmetal Alchemist fanfiction. Think about it. Sections of the original series shoved in and referenced without making any narrative sense. The pre-existing laws of the universe are completely ignored for cool new powers. The main characters have no relevance to the plot and are pushed to the wayside while the new OCs take center stage. A beautiful woman who's an archaeologist and a ghost, and also a powerful scaly, and is also the reincarnation of a 1,000-year-old princess, who's deeply in love with her cold, cool, handsome, shirtless, rival to the main character boyfriend, who wears black and is a mass murderer, but it's for her. So it's okay. They go to a location never mentioned in the original series to find a MacGuffin, which is super similar to the main series MacGuffin, but nobody's ever heard of it. And also Indiana Jones is there. I can't be the only one who sees this, right? Despite all that, like I said, the gameplay is very solid and worth your time, and I'd absolutely recommend you giving this one a playthrough. Just don't go looking for deep lore or anything like that. If you're one of those people who needs to be able to properly understand and follow an interesting story along with high-quality gameplay, well then I hope you speak Japanese, because otherwise, you're about to be pretty fucking lost.